Welcome. This is To Our Core with Katie Murray, and this is the place where we peel back our layers to uncover who we really are at our centre, at our core. And think of it as a chat with your bestie, the one who can make you laugh until your belly hurts, who is ridiculously unfiltered, and will lovingly call you forward to help you cut through the noise and get real with yourself. Around here, nothing is off limits, and we are mixing this up with equal parts humour and heart, so let's dive right in. Hey friends, welcome back to our core. Today, I really want to share something a bit personal to me. And I don't want it to be too heavy, and also I think it's a really great reminder for all of us about the responsibility cloak that we often adopt. And when I say the responsibility cloak, I'm not talking about one that just looks at like a checklist where you can tick it off and feel like a sense of accomplishment. I'm talking about responsibility that we adopt that weighs really heavy on our hearts. The kind that can have us feeling like we need to perform even when we're exhausted or we're hurting or we're grieving because we're afraid to stop. We're afraid to stop. And this conversation, and I did, for those that are on my mailing list and get my monthly newsletters, you already have heard part of this story because I shared it in that place as well. It was born from one of the most sacred moments as I was sitting beside my 96-year-old Nan in her final hours on this earth. And what I witnessed and what I felt in those moments and what I learned in that room, because there were learnings and also incredible reminders, have stayed with me at the forefront of my mind every day since. And so I wanted to share a little bit about my Nan's story, a little bit about her final moments. And in those moments, before my Nan passed and I sat beside her bed, she was tired and her body was frail and her spirit was so ready. In fact, her spirit had been ready for quite some years. She used to tongue-in-cheek kind of joke about the fact that every night, and I'm not really sure it was actually that much of a joke, but every night in the last several years of her life, she had gone to bed and said, "Okay, God, totally fine for you to take me in my sleep. I'm ready now." And then she'd wake up the next morning and she was a bit miffed. She was a bit like, how much longer do I need to endure this? Because the thing with my Nan is that she had been living with very, very severe scoliosis for I think probably the last 10, 15 years of her life. She was in the final years completely bent over. She couldn't stand upright. And because of the curvature in her spine, it was actually compressing and crushing her internal organs. She was in a lot of pain. In spite of that, she had lived independently her entire life, even up to 96. Until that Sunday when an ambulance was called for her because she had what she had said was just a bad cold, ended up being pneumonia. And she was taken into hospital. And the doctors were offering her more treatment. And the truth was, it wasn't going to save her. The doctors had said, this is beyond being able to save her life. I mean, she's 96, she's got pneumonia, she's very frail. However, they were giving her antibiotics, etc., in the hope of getting the infection. I don't know, because it wasn't it was just about prolonging what we already knew was going to be inevitable. And Nan knew that too. And yet she was quite distressed when I went in and saw her, and it was not about her being scared to die. Like I said, she'd been asking the dear Lord to take her home for a number of years, and my mum used to joke with her, He knows what a fastidious, clean, house-proud woman you are, and He's just making sure that all the dusting's done and your bed is made perfectly for you. Her distress in that hospital bed was about something else, and it was something that I was completely floored by when she looked at me and she said, I don't want people to think I'm taking the easy way out. And I was completely confused, to be honest. Like, she was struggling to breathe. She was 96. She had very limited quality of life. How could her ceasing antibiotics and removing her oxygen that she was on be the easy way out? Either way, she was facing death. And her words, they really hurt my heart, because here was this extraordinary woman. She was strong, she was kind, she was generous. And at 96 years old, she was still so worried about how her choice might be perceived. To the point that we actually called a couple members of her church and got them to speak to her and reassure her that she was not taking the easy way out, that she had fought the hard fight, she has done all that is expected of her and more, and she was okay to make the choice that felt right for her, which was that she didn't want any more treatment to prolong her situation. Even in her final chapter, she was performing from a sense of responsibility, a responsibility to others, trying to do the right thing, trying not to be misunderstood, trying to make others feel comfortable and at peace. And it really made me wonder, when did we decide that other people's opinions were more important than our own peace? When did we decide that other people's opinions were more important than our own peace? Maybe you can resonate with this a little bit. Maybe there are so many things that you're doing in your life and you're not even sure why you're doing them. You just believe they are expected of you, so you continue them. And we are taught responsibility from a very young age. Be a good girl now. You don't want to let people down. Hold it together. Be strong. Dust yourself off. You'll be right. It's really important that you're reliable. And make sure you're the one that gets the job done. And if you're going to do a job, do it right. And somewhere along the way, those lessons morph into a quiet rule book that we do not question. And we don't just do responsibility anymore, we perform it. We perform strength. I've talked about this, episode 1. I talked about how I took the most purest value that I saw in my father of his stoicism and his strength, and then I overdid that value so significantly in the way that I showed up in life that I actually created this whole persona around it. That I needed to be the strong one. That's what people expected. That is not actually what people expected of me. That's what I told myself that people expected of me. That I needed to be the strong one, to carry on, to be stoic, to keep it all together. And I shared in that episode 1 how it left me feeling so incredibly isolated. And I didn't feel strong. But I still got praise for it. which then reinforced my belief that I needed to continue to perform it. We perform calm, often frantic on the inside. The duck analogy where your feet are going, are they called feet? Do duck have feet? They're things. I'm sure they're their feet. Yeah. So the duck feet under the water going 100 miles an hour whilst its body looking pretty chill on the top of the water. And that's how often so many of us are showing up too in our lives. Like, got to keep it cool, calm and composed. Can't let anyone else see that I'm actually having a freak out on the inside, because then what would they think of me? So we perform calm. We perform being fine. I'm fine. I spoke about this in another episode, the different variations of fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And because we don't actually know at the end of the day what it would mean if we didn't perform. Would people think we're selfish? It would, if we broke out of the mold and the performing that we've always done, would they think, oh, what's gotten into her? She's changed. Have you heard that before? When you actually maybe grow, or you start standing up for yourself and you actually start articulating what your views are, what your wishes are, what your wants are, what your needs are. And people will be like, she's really changed. And, it's not often that people say it in a way, that particular sentence, in the positive. And that is exactly what we fear. We fear that people will say we've changed and they'll like us a little bit less for it. We worry that people, if we stop performing, might think we're lazy. I was speaking to a client the other day and she said, you know what, she had quite a hard childhood in terms of facing a lot of health struggles. She had to stay in bed a lot of the time, and her mum was probably maybe intending to motivate her by saying, get up, you're being lazy, trying to increase her energy by getting her to move her body. And she said, I hate the word lazy now. I hate it. And still, that is in the back of my head when I see my child now laying about in bed, not doing much at all. And I hear myself saying those same words. Get up, you're being lazy. That's conditioning, where we adopt other people's thoughts, beliefs, and viewpoints, and we take them on as our own. I recently shared on Instagram, it was a post from someone else, I think, which was talking about most of our thoughts and our beliefs were never ours to start with. We heard them from school teachers, we heard them from aunts, uncles, friends, we heard them on TV, we heard them from we saw them from what we read, we consumed them from our friends, the neighbours, everyone else's opinions, particularly between the ages of 0 to 7, we were just like sponges soaking them up. And we took them on as our own. And that post was saying, it's time to put down the mic on everyone else's thoughts, opinions and views and find your own voice. We worry, particularly around, the word laziness, that there will be a judgment around that if we rest. And now it's impacting a whole lot of people because they associate their productivity with their worth. So if they're not being productive, then what does that mean for them? Are they unworthy? If we stop performing, would we be weak? Would others view us as weak? Would they see us as taking the easy way out like my nan feared? What if this version of responsibility, this constant performing, is actually the thing that is disconnecting us from ourselves? What if it's costing us our peace, our rest, our freedom, even our truth? Maybe for you, that performance looks like holding everything together for your family, even when you're falling apart on the inside. Maybe it's pushing through exhaustion because rest feels like weakness. Maybe it's pretending to be fine at work because vulnerability doesn't feel professional. Maybe it's saying yes when every single part of you is screaming no because the mere thought of disappointing others feels completely unbearable for you. Whatever form it takes, I want to offer you my thought. And you can adopt it as your own if you want to, or you can question it. But my thought is that every time we perform, we are silencing something inside of us. The word performance suggests that we are not being ourselves. When you think about actors on a stage and they're performing, they're adopting a different character. They are adopting a different persona. And because of that, if we walk through our life every single day performing to other people's expectations, then we lose a grasp on who we are. And maybe that right there is the real self-sabotage that we don't talk about enough. Not the messy choices or the fear of procrastination. Yes, we know that they can be very much well-advertised self-sabotage strategies that we often deploy. And also, what about it's the way that we prolong our own suffering just to prove something that no one has probably even asked us to prove. That moment with Nan, I want to offer it as a mirror to all of us. She spent her whole life caring for others, deeply, beautifully, selflessly. One of our favourite activities, while I'm just having a moment of reflecting on my Nan, was that Christmas Eves, we would always watch the Christmas carols on TV, and her and I would critique. Now, in the latter years, we didn't always sit together and watch the Christmas Eve carols together, but we would always debrief after the event, like on Christmas Day or whatever. We're like, what did you think of that person? She'd be like, oh, well, I think Marina Pryor could have done it better, but they gave it a good go. I could see that they were trying. And even as she faced death, she was still caring about others. And she was caring about what others might think of her. What if our peace comes from stopping performing? When we let the masks drop and we trust that who we are and what we need is enough. Full stop. Full sentence. We trust that who we are and what we need is enough. Yes, Nan's words in her final moments broke my heart. And they also gave a beautiful reminder that I hope will support you also. Her words were a reminder that freedom doesn't come from doing more, proving more, pleasing more. It comes from coming home to ourselves, from choosing peace, even when there's a chance we may be misunderstood. By releasing the need to perform, even when the world tells us that's what being responsible looks like. So maybe the question isn't, how can I do more? Or how do I need to perform here? Instead, the question that we should be asking ourselves is, what would peace look like if I actually stopped performing and I was me? So I'm going to invite you into a few reflective questions. Now, if you're out on a walk or you're driving a car and you don't have access to a pen to safely write these down, just take notice of where you're at in the recording. Come back to this episode at another time, because I really think that some self-exploration around this will be very illuminating. To just, maybe you're not a journaler, maybe you don't want to write it out. And also I'd really invite you to spend some time pondering, where am I prolonging my own suffering to meet someone else's expectations? Where am I prolonging my own suffering to meet someone else's expectations? Do you hate ironing? And yet you iron because you feel like that's what might make you look like a good wife, a good mother, an organized person. What if you just bought clothes that didn't need ironing? Or what about you just didn't iron the clothes? Whatever it is that you're doing that you don't really care for, that in some way makes you suffer by doing things in this life that you don't really care about, because you're trying to meet or impress someone else's expectations, which if you actually ask them, they probably have never said those expectations. They probably don't have those expectations. And even if they do, why is their expectation of you more important than your expectation of what makes you happy, and honoring that? What would it look like to choose peace, even if someone misunderstood it? Like if you don't want to do something on the weekend and someone invited you and you said, thank you so much for the offer and I'm going to pass on this one. And you left it at that. No over justifying, no like giving them a huge checklist of all the reasons why you can't do that. You just say, no, thank you. Or I'm just going to pass this time. And you, yes, risk the fact that they may misunderstand, and also you choose your peace. Am I performing responsibility or actually living in alignment with what feels true for me? Those questions, where am I prolonging my own suffering to meet someone else's expectations? What would it look like to choose peace, even if someone misunderstood it? And am I performing responsibility or actually living in alignment with what feels true for me, for what I actually want and what I need? That's the gateway back to you. And if these questions, or in fact this entire episode, has resonated deeply with you in the realization that you have been spending a whole lot of time performing in the effort to hopefully please others, someone, your mother-in-law, whoever it might be, please go to the link in the show notes to join the waitlist for the self-sabotage solution. This is going to be an incredibly powerful 6-week online group coaching container. It's going to cover it all. It's going to support you to uncover all of the different self-sabotaging behaviors that sneak into our lives, such as perfectionism, people-pleasing, procrastination, performing, so that you can actually notice them, acknowledge them, say, is this what I want for myself? Is this actually getting me to where I want to go? Or do I need to get out of my own way so I can start taking action in a way that feels truly empowering, limitless, and fueled by momentum? This is going to be a very intimate coaching container. I am only going to work with a very small number of people. I want it to feel safe. I want it to be inclusive. I want it to be the perfect place for self-exploration so that you can truly create sustainable change for you. The self-sabotage solution waitlist is open now. I don't want you to miss out on this. Put your name on the list. It's a no obligation space, but it will mean that when doors open, you will be the first to know and you will be able to secure your spot if you're on the list. Because I want you to know that you don't owe anyone your exhaustion. You don't owe anyone your constant holding it together. You certainly do not owe anyone a performance. If you are performing all of the time, how can anyone know you? And what are you afraid of if they do know you? That they won't like you? Is that the existence you want to have? Where you never let anyone close enough to get to know you? Because of your fear that if you do, they won't like you? Well, I can guarantee you, when you let people see who you truly are and you find your tribe because they know exactly who you are and you can magnetize them to you, it'll feel like you've come home. You owe yourself your peace. You owe yourself your truth. You owe yourself your freedom. It's all available to you the moment you choose it. I want to thank you so much for listening to part of my Nan's story and her reminder that she offered me in the final moments of her life and that I've now shared with you. And as always, let this be your reminder to return again and again to your core so that not only others know you, that you know you. Because when you do, my friend, you unlock your superpower. Thanks for spending time with me today on To Our Core. If something landed in your heart or gave you a much needed giggle, consider sharing it with a friend who also may need this as a timely reminder. And go on, you know you want to. Give me a 5-star review so that this podcast can land in the ears of many, many more people. Because remember that life is too short to stay on the surface. Keep living, loving, and laughing all the way to your core. Go make life great. And if you want support around this, go to the show notes to find out more. Until next time, I'll meet you back here with more truth, laughter, and a whole lot of heart.